Hey guys, bunnyhoppor here. Today I would like to bring you a guide on a deck that I enjoyed playing a lot. I played it to rank 39 legend at the highest, and yeah, it's not super popular deck. It's also not the highest power level deck, but it's a deck I had a lot of fun playing on stream. I'll link the videos in the description as well, because yeah, we had a lot of fun pinging people in the face, just waking up and feeling like you want a hero power, and yeah, sometimes pyroblasting somebody in the face every turn for 2 mana and no cards spent. So that's pretty awesome. It's a deck that I can recommend for fun. This is the list I personally think is the best for the current meta. I really like how the overall matchup spread is. I'll get a little bit into matchups and into Mulligan and what I think it's good for, what I think it's bad for, why I like this list a little bit later. But yeah, it's a deck I've been having a lot of fun with, and promised a guide on it. So here we go. Let's get right into it. First up, we have for the Mulligan cards that I always want to keep. So cards that I always want to keep are basically just my cheap cards. So Shivering Sorceress, Wildfire, Archaeologist, those are like always good cards to keep. And then we have the Amplified Snow Flurry, which is a pretty cool card that is really, really effective against aggro. And then we have the One Thief. Sometimes we don't want to keep the One Thief, we don't think we can activate it. Sometimes we don't want to keep the Flurry if we don't have any good ways to make our hero power do more damage. But against most decks, it's very, very solid because it pushes early damage and it controls the board very well. And it's the most powerful card against aggressive style decks because you remove their tempo while developing your own. And against aggro decks, you also kind of want to keep Fire Sale and Reckless Apprentice. Fire Sale being your only super early board clear with the large reach, especially against Rogue. That was a very good card in that specific meta because I made a lot of 3/3s. And then Reckless Apprentice is a very good card. If you have buffed your hero power against any deck, like if you've already buffed the hero power once, Reckless Apprentice is just amazing against every single deck in the game. But most effective, it is already at 1 damage against Face Hunter because they like to go wide with a bunch of 1/1s. You have to fight them off for a few turns. And then you can afterwards stack some armor with cards like Snowblind Harpy, Ice Barrier, and Deepwater Invoker, and then usually get out of the burn range of those more aggressive style decks. Also pretty effective, I would say, against Shadow Priest, as well as against Beast Hunter and Beast Druid. But there, of course, you want to get your hero power buffed early as well. So this is like the more aggressive style decks that you can find. These cards are like good against the more aggressive style decks. And surprisingly, I thought at the start I was going to have a very bad win rate against those aggressive decks, but I found out that the way that this deck is built here, where I put a lot more card draw in it, I put a lot more armor game in it, and I put a lot of emphasis on getting to your good cards by drawing a lot of cards during the course of the game. I found that it actually works quite well against aggro decks, so they aren't as bad of a matchup as I was thinking. Next up, we have Deepwater Invoker. Deepwater Invoker is one of the 2 major draw engines of this deck. You have Archaeologist and Deepwater Invoker that draw single cards, and then you have the big payoff card, which is Multicaster, which draws a spell for every single spell school you have cast that game. And with the inclusion of Ruined Orb in this deck list specifically, you can often make sure that you've played 2 or 3 spell schools already by the time a multicaster hits the board, and you can then start fishing for your more effective cards like Modric or maybe even your hero. So against more greedy style decks, I often like to keep a Deepwater Invoker, especially with our Archaeologist, because you can go like Archaeologist, Ice Bearer, Deepwater Invoker, and you spend your mana very efficiently. And then last but not least, we have Masked Polymorph. That card is only really good against priests, but it's very, very fun against priest, so specifically Miracle Priest. Against aggro priest is not quite as good. You probably don't want to keep it if you don't know if your opponent is an aggro priest. It's an expensive card, so you're more likely to draw it in a game that goes on a little bit longer if you would actually be playing against a Miracle Priest or some sort of death metal deck. That card can be quite good. Yeah, so that is one of the cards I recommend. If you know exactly your opponent's playing Miracle Priest, you're going to be able to stomp their entire deck just using the single card. One more card that I think is often nice keeping is Dawn Grasp. If you're playing against decks like Paladin or other decks where you think the game is going to go a lot longer and you're going to have to whittle your opponent down, maybe because they have healing, maybe because they have armor gain, that card helps you a lot because it makes sure that they don't always play a threat and you have to answer it, but you also threaten your opponent to abuse their threat as a scaling power for your hero damage. Yeah, so let's get a little bit more into gameplay, into matchups, into like what are the pros and cons. So first of all, Miracle Priest does this to Priest. They all just quit. I'll show you some highlights. I've had a lot of fun. You can see you play Polymorph, it gets rid of their entire board, and yeah, you know, the priest gets to leave the game, and you get to move on, increase the MMR, and you can say meh, bye bye priest. Meh. Meh. That gets there, Copium. That always gets there. I don't even want to pulley this, but it's just more fun to pulley this. You also are really good against like control warriors just because they usually only have 36 burst and you can stack a lot of armor with my deck with Arcanologist Ice Barrier and then Snow. You draw that barrier, then you play the Harpy, which gives you the armor, then you have the Deep Vault Invoker in the armor, then you have the hero, and you have so much damage that it's really, really hard for them to sustain through it. With Mask of Cthulhu, which is your only shadow spell, your hero always replays it, and you get to ping them in the face a lot. And then there's just no way that a warrior can sustain through this. So it's very important, when your hero power is big enough and you feel like it, to say the magic word. Pew! Pew, pew, pew. So as soon as you have a Pyroblast enabled hero power, it's very important to pew your opponent in the face. Pew, pew, of course, being the attack sound of Reno the hero. But yeah, especially when you have like 10 damage, like you can see in this clip, you have a Pyroblast hero power that you can hit towards your opponent. That is super fun. Always just for me, it's always just pew. It's a lot of fun being able to hero power for that much damage. Of course, we have last fun card in the deck as well, which is Rune of the Archmage. Rune of the Archmage is not a very good damage tool. If you want to think of how to use it, Rune of the Archmage is usually a card that you play as another board clear. If you want to clear your opponent's board, Rune of the Archmage is very good. It often clears a decent amount of your opponent's board, unless it's like super huge, where you have to use mass polymorph. It's like a mid-sized board, like 1 or 2, 3 mid to larger minions. You can use it, and Rune of the Archmage will oftentimes clear while also giving you some sort of like advantage while like casting a secret or freezing or generating some additional cards. So that card's really cool. And yeah, so for now I have a few game highlights. I already showed you the highlights of beating little Miracle Priests with Polymorph, but I can also show you some highlights right here for beating Aggro Priest. I've faced a few Aggro Priests on ladder, and it's important to early contest their board with like upgraded hero power, wildfire, snow flurry, as we discussed a little bit earlier, and then being able to use reckless apprentice to get rid of the board, and you can then afterwards use a snow flurry, the harpy, to gain some armor, or deep water invoker to get out of the range of their hero power and slowly dwindle them down. I'd like you to get the fuck out of my game. Then we have gameplay against Warlock. Against Warlocks, often important when they make a really big board in the mid game to use mass polymorph to polymorph all their board, and then they redevelop, and then you can play your hero. If mass polymorph is like your only arcane spell, you can then play the hero to polymorph your opponent's board. If you have a Mask of Cthulhu, your hero will often clear the board as well. And then you have the super upgraded hero power, and then you can use Reckless Apprentice to be able to hero power your opponents down while doing damage to their face. Important thing to know is Reckless Apprentice will trigger the hero power on the targets in the order and that they're in which they're played, and Reckless Apprentice will also trigger the honorable kill of your hero power. So if there's a 4 HP minion and you play Reckless Apprentice and it shoots everything for 4 damage, your next hero power will do 6 damage, for example. Then against Hunter, you try to early contest the board. Face Hunter, for example, you try to early contest the board, and then just stack armor and then kill him with Mask. You have a lot of burst in the stack as well. Mask of Cthulhu is a lot of burst. As against Warrior, I already said, just stack a little bit of armor and then just continuously click them in a game. Against Warrior, keep your hero, play a Mask of Cthulhu. It's super effective against Bulwark. And if they ever come to a silly idea of playing a Rattlegore, just, turn the Rattlegore Scream into meh, and you just mass polymorph all they have. I certainly don't have a highlight clip of that because nobody's tried that against me yet, but maybe we'll get there in the future. Yeah, so that's my short guide on Ping Mage. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you get to enjoy Ping Mage as much as I did. I have to disclaim, don't expect like the super highest win rate. I got to rank 39 legend with this, but that's kind of where I got stuck. Because yeah, it's a tier 3 deck, but it's a super fun tier 3 deck to me at least. Check out the videos if you want to see a little bit more Ping Mage gameplay. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like in the comment below. What is the next guide you would like to see on this channel? Very high on my list is right now Quest Warlock, but let me know if you want to do something else. I appreciate it a lot. You guys have a good day. Bye bye.